Yo, if you're expecting my normal stuff, that's not what this is. I'm learning DaVinci for my new projects as working in Adobe was a wholly hellish experience deserving of a separate video. Regardless, I'm making this to discuss something completely different. Internet censorship. More specifically, the recent actions in government and their consequences on YouTube. If you haven't heard, you need to, as this directly affects you. There's been a wave of children's protection policies, I say that very loosely, being enacted as of late, and it is crucial that you know that these policies 1. Are not protecting children, 2. Aren't intended to protect children, and 3. Actively threaten your privacy and access to information online. The Online Safety Act was put in place in the UK beginning in 2023, but as of July 2025, platforms now have a legal duty to protect children online. And if Ofcom, the UK's communications regulator, thinks they aren't fulfilling such duties, a fine of up to £18 million or 10% of their global revenue, whichever is higher. Shortly after this rolls out, platforms in the UK, now left with limited choice, are requiring users to provide ID verification and/or selfies, biometric data, to prove they aren't children. Not only is this a major violation of users' privacy, this does not stop a child from accessing bad content online. If ID is required, a child could grab the ID of any adult and use that. And if that doesn't work, they could begin looking in shadier places for the content, which puts them at greater risk. Still, some might see this as a way to lessen the ease of access to such content, but I think they're overestimating its effect on those under 18 and massively underestimate how dangerous the broad scope of these restrictions is, which perfectly highlights how this act and others like it were never meant to protect children in the first place. Case in point, what kinds of platforms do you think are being targeted? Platforms surrounding sexual content? Maybe ones with violent content? Because they were thinking ones like Spotify and Wikipedia, the most despicable of them all. Spotify users in the UK are being required to provide ID and/or biometric data to access certain content on the platform and can have their accounts deactivated or completely deleted for not complying. Now, does this seem like a push to protect children, or a means of censoring what types of information and media can be seen online, even and especially with adults? Wikipedia is now having to legally challenge the UK legislation in order to keep maintaining access to information, which is ridiculous. Even if your teacher wouldn't like you citing it as a source, we all know it's a good place to get information and generally unharmful to people of all ages. Maybe you're thinking, that's crazy, but I'm in the US. The US and even Russia are working on mighty similar acts of their own. And based on the US government's action, or rather lack thereof, regarding releasing the Epstein files, documents which would expose people who have already brought great harm to children, I highly doubt they would use these acts for such purposes. Instead, I can see how this would be a means to censor any content that governments don't want to come to light. Any content that disagrees or pushes back against their decisions, any content that causes political discourse. Hell, any content that doesn't bend to their narrative could be censored because if you, yes you, want to watch content on this platform, you could be forced to provide private personal information like your ID, credit card, or biometrics in order to watch YouTube. Starting August 13th, YouTube will be implementing a system in which AI examines things like what type of content you watch and your account's opening date to determine or rather loosely estimate if you're of age. I mean, all it would take is the accusation that you might not be of age for you to be forced into coughing up that sweet data. Whether or not this AI-based system is implemented in a fair and good-intentioned way, it fucking won't be. By now you should see just how easily this system and systems like it could be abused to control you and what you have access to online. So right now is not the time to turn a blind eye. Unfortunately, further reinforcing my point that the government isn't doing this for or with the people, a UK petition with nearly 500,000 signatures as of recording this, calling to repeal the Online Safety Act, has not had a substantial effect. But if we simply lay down and let ourselves get kicked in the stomach until we bow down, the online space you use right now will no longer be free. So make noise and fight back against these acts in the reasonable ways you can.